And here we are. And when I say we, I mean me and my old friend, Vicki. Vic, now when I say old friend, I don't mean that you're old. I mean, I feel like we can say that we're old friends now.
We are. We go way back to Dallas. 2019.
Don't ask me to remember the date.
I think it was 2019. I'm going to guess 2019.
That sounds close.
Maybe 18.
I think possible. It was before then. It was before possible. Then. Yeah. I mean, we're going on. We got to be over 5 years friends here. Over.
Yeah, we are.
We're pushing 7, I think.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Where's our little 5-year sticker?
I don't know. But anyway, we've been doing this show here for a couple years now, and we've been trying to put out some content for the folk out there. And we have done a lot, man. So we're calling this season 9. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing.
We lost count. That's what
it's nowhere near accurate. Season 9. It's probably like season 50, because if you go all the way back to the Jared days and all the archives and everything that we've done. So we're just calling this season 9 for whatever reason. And we're just we do that actually to try to kind of separate the time periods, or so people can, I don't know, look at the archives differently, or anyway, it is what it is. Vic, hey, I'm glad to see you, my friend. It's been a couple weeks. It seems like I just saw you. We were at a conference together down in Brookville, Ohio. So what's your recap of that conference down there?
Ooh. So go there for is always like way too short. It's 2 full days, but when you're running around, it's like it's a whirlwind, and you get done and you're like, oh man, I only got 5 minutes with that person, or I wish those things were like 2 weeks long. I really do. But it was great. Everybody was there, got to see old friends. What was really fun for me, Tom, was all-time first. Skywatch TV had a presence. Joe Horn was one of the speakers. Yeah. And I providentially kind of got put next to their table. So I got to hang out with Joe and Nita and Catherine and Brittany Jackson of Skywatch. So that was kind of fun. Kenny was there. We got to hang out with our buddy Kenny, and yeah, I could go on and on. I'm not going to list everybody, but
it's like a family reunion, right? We love hanging out and seeing each other, and we've been doing this for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm kind of overwhelmed even thinking about all the cool things that happen. Seeing old friends, making new friends, man. That conference. Now the plan is, I'm not going to be speaking at it, but I'm planning on being at it next year. So I'm going to be going just as an attendee, which is totally cool with me.
That's what I did this year, and I loved it. There was something cool about like getting invited to the party, but not having to bring anything. Yeah. So it's going to be the opposite for me next year. I'll be there speaking, so I'm glad that you're going to be there, even though you're not going to.
Hey, Greg, we forgot to mention Greg Reed. Reed was there. We had a couple meals with Greg Reed.
Yes. Yeah.
So, man, he had a rough year, and we didn't know if he was going to make it, but he was there, and good to see him. So,
I was kind of fangirling, Tom. I got to meet, not speaking, but in attendance, milling about with the commoners, author Jim Wilhelmsen, who I actually quote in my book, and I've got his book somewhere behind the Black Awakening up there. And I was stoked. I knew he was going to be there, so I brought my book and he signed it, and he wrote the book Beyond Science Fiction. It's mostly about UFO abductees, but he put a couple like snippets in his book about sleep paralysis that put me on a whole new journey of researching sleep paralysis, which led to my writing a couple initial articles for Real Dark News way back in the day, which led to the book. So he just bops up to my table, and I felt like I was in high school again, giggling over a rock star. It was super fun to meet him.
That's cool. That's awesome. I'll tell you who I met were, and I'm probably going to screw this up, the Red Pill Project. Were these? Did you see these guys walking in? They walked in, dude, like they were like they owned the place. Honestly, and that was their first time there.
Ghostbuster outfits.
Yeah. And they walked in right before I went on stage, and I was like, "Oh, cool! This is cool. These guys are going to be interesting to meet." Wow. So I did get to meet them, and then I got invited to be on their show, which I don't know when that's premiering, their podcast, but I had a great time hanging out with them. We did a show over 2 hours long and talked about like all kinds of SRA stuff. So super cool. L.A. Marzulli was there as well.
Gilbert's.
Yeah. Well, L.A. and Peggy, and yes, Peggy. The Gilberts. Yeah. You can't mention L.A. without mentioning Peggy.
Absolutely, so, we cannot. Love that woman. Well, and we actually had a little bit of fun after the conference. Kenny C. joined me and Dad and the Gosneys, some friends of ours, and hung out in your neck of the woods in your Airbnb and just had some hangout time. It was awesome.
It was cool. And I got a really cool shirt, which I'm not wearing tonight, but I'll probably be wearing next week. I'll be talking about the Rorschach devices, which is a really cool guitar pedal. I don't know anything about musical instruments or anything, but I do know enough to know that this is a super cool guitar pedal. And and one of our friends is the inventor of it. So
very cool. Very cool. I'll wear my shirt too. We'll show Justin some love next week.
Yes. So no, very good. Hey, we're gonna jump into this. We got some stuff we're gonna talk about tonight, but I want to mention we have a couple updates. First, let me mention the No More Dead Babies campaign. This is something that we've been working on since December of last year. And if you go to the website, nomoredeadbabies.com, you can get a free shirt. Okay. So, and the shirt says No More Dead Babies. Man, I'll tell you what, for me, it's so much fun to wear this shirt out to see what kind of reactions I get. I get 99% positive reactions. And I've had people say, "Where did you get that shirt?" And I said, "Well, I made this shirt." And they said, "I want one." And I'll bring them one. I had somebody at a store say that to me, and I brought this lady in a shirt. And the people that don't like it, they usually don't have the guts to say anything, which is unfortunate because I would not mind having conversations with them. How could you not like a shirt that doesn't want babies to be dead? That's kind of weird to me, but those people are out there. So anyway, the cool thing is Vic, we ordered 300 of these shirts, and we've given away almost 300 of them. Ooh. Over 250, and we had to order some more. So I just ordered 200 more shirts. And if you're doing the math, that's 500 altogether. This is our most successful campaign that we've done. And we want to give these shirts away for free. People have been taking advantage of this, and we want them to. Okay. It's about the message. Now, the cool thing is, and if we scroll down on this webpage here, you'll see the sponsors that helped us get this off of the ground. Okay. Coach Dave. Okay. We have Transforming Word, Mike Spalding. We have the Dig Bible podcast with Prometheus Lens. and Harvest Revival Center. All those guys donated money to help us buy the initial t-shirts. Okay. So thank you. And there's a button there. If anybody wants to donate to us or sponsor us, all of the proceeds are going to promote this campaign, which the message is babies are being killed and we don't want them to be killed. Okay. We want people to get involved and to pray. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's been a different kind of a year. Even though we haven't been like full time pushing this campaign, it's still been very successful. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we're not done with it. We're really just getting started. This is an ongoing thing. This is not over. Okay. Until we stop the killing of babies, this is not over. So anyway, we're going to continue to push out this idea. And the thing is, there are pro-life missionaries, and those guys do amazing work. I have 2 kids that have been pro-life missionaries and work full-time, or volunteered their time to save babies. That's not enough. We can't just count on those guys to save the babies. We've got to do it ourselves. Okay, we've got to be involved ourselves, and that's the idea behind this campaign. So anyway, if anybody wants to be a sponsor, you can be a sponsor. The next thing that we're going to do, okay, after we order these 200 shirts, is we're going to order a Spanish version of the shirt, okay? And Vic, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but we want to continue to offer the t-shirts for free, but we might have to change it up, and we might sell the Spanish version of the shirt. I don't know how we're going to do this, okay? We might try to get something on the website where people can give a donation of any amount. And that's what we were doing at the conference, okay? A donation of any amount, you get a shirt. So you could be 1 penny or $1 million. We'll take either one, okay? So, or somewhere in between. But thank you guys for supporting the campaign. Thank you guys for getting the shirts and wearing the shirts. We also gave away signs. We don't really do those through the mail because they're just too big and bulky, and it's too much of a hassle to ship. Okay. So you got to show up at a conference or know us or meet us in person if you want to sign. So anyway, yeah, that's what's going on with that. Okay. Now, Vic, we got to get all the business out of the way. So there is one question that we get asked more than anything, in our emails personally. They ask, when is the book, or how do I get the book, The Black Awakening? Well, we have an answer to that question. You can get the book, The Black Awakening, by going to the website Shatter Worldwide. Okay. ShatterWorldwide.com. I believe Katie will have the link in the show notes, and you can click on it and you can order a copy of The Black Awakening. Okay. Vic, I actually talked to Charity, Russ's daughter, yesterday, and she said that the books are shipping at the beginning of September. Okay. So if people have been wanting this book is obviously very proximate to what's happening in the world. And I understand why people want it, and now they can get it. So there you go. That's the information. We're going to be talking about this and promoting the book and let everybody know about this. And so, yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. Thank you for giving us a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing the video and sharing the channel and everything. You can go through our archives and find a weird show, just about anything. And if you want to learn about something weird or something dark, this is the place that you can do it. Has it been almost 2 years since we really started almost like systematically covering all these topics and exposing witchcraft and Satanism and rituals, sigil magic and chaos magic and all these things. Okay. People have questions about these things and they don't know where to go. Nobody knows about these things. So we're explaining, what does it mean? well, what are these things, and how can we react as Christians? So anyway, you can go back, check it out. There is some archive buttons or pages on our website. You guys can find that through theblack.com. So I just appreciate everybody who supports us, who prays for us. It means the world to us. And there are those that that support us financially. That means the world. We don't take that for granted at all. But Vic, man, it's been a while, and I know you've been busy. I've been busy. Sean and I have been just trying to keep the lights on over here, right? Trying to keep something going. And Katie's been here, so glad to have you back for season 9. We got some stuff to get into, but there's been some crazy stuff going on. I don't know what you think about all this stuff. We've kind of talked a little bit about it, but there's been some events that have happened in the last couple months that haven't happened in decades, right? Assassination attempts, okay? A sitting president dropping out of the race. Is basically a coup d'etat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're taken out. We're seeing crazy things happen right before our eyes. We're living in it, okay? And we can go back and see what happened a couple years ago, just things that have never happened before. The lockdown, the whole world shutting down, the virus, the I almost said the other V word, and all of the lockdowns, all the crazy stuff, and it doesn't seem like anything's gonna let up. What's happening next, Vic? Can you tell us?
Oh man, I don't know. The first that I noticed it, I'm sure it's been going on since the beginning of time, but if you go all the way back to 2000, so we're a quarter of a century into this nonsense. Remember the whole dangling Chad routine with the whole Bush Gore thing, and it was on the news night and day, and 24/7 news, and we're getting close-ups of boxes of white Broncos driving down the street delivering ballots, and getting newscasters up on the air giving us election trivia about Chads and all this nonsense. And it's almost like we as Americans are in this catch-22 situation where this stuff causes an extreme amount of stress and dissension in the ranks, but it's almost like we're addicted to the show. Like every 4 years, they have to put on this show, and every year now, it's kind of like, if 1 year for Christmas, you get your kid a car, you have to keep one up in yourself, or nothing's ever, you can't get him a Cabbage Patch Kid today.
I wouldn't start out in a car, but
I wouldn't either. But the fact is now it's like every election, it's like the news has to have 24 hours a day worth of exciting competing with Hollywood type of stuff to keep people glued to the screen, keep them talking, keep social media buzzing. And I just don't know. I kind of think that real life is probably too boring for us at this point, and we're sort of almost inadvertently asking for this mess because we demand entertainment and news at every moment. And so when there's none, they have to keep churning this stuff out. So how much of this is real life, and how much is this okay, we got to give the people their show, and there has to be drama, and there has to be all of this neck and neck competition. We have to go into overtime, right? Here, we can't know in advance who's a shoo-in for this election. We got to go into overtime to make sure all the viewers, are getting their money's worth. I don't know. I'm not saying everything's made up and everything's fake. I'm actually not saying that. What I'm saying is this is where our constant need as Americans to be titillated and entertained at every moment is biting us in the butt, because they're providing to us our reality now in entertainment formats where we have to constantly be on the edge of our seats and having anxiety and chattering about this stuff. And sometimes I just think, I don't think real life is really this exciting. How much of this is manufactured for our entertainment value?
How many times have we heard this election is the biggest election of our lifetime in the last 20 years, right?
I know.
So, and I don't think it's been more true than it is right now as to what's at stake. And I mean, I don't know. So there are people that say, and I think I think this is true to a certain degree. And I've heard this for a while. Presidents aren't elected; they're selected. I agree with that, but for me personally, I feel like when Donald Trump came came onto the scene or entered into the race, it was a game changer. Okay. Now, I'm not a Trump apologist. I'm not a Trump, campaigner or anything like that. I could list things I don't like about the guy. Okay. And they have nothing to do with his mean tweets. I think those are funny. Okay. But it's probably the number one is going to be his stance on abortion. He's nowhere near pro-life enough for me. And then the other is what happened when I personally believe he was just kind of at the mercy of the experts. Okay. And I don't know if I don't know if we should give him a pass on this, but he was at the mercy of the experts when it came to what happened back in 2020. So anyway, what is true? What is illusion? I was listening to an interview earlier today, and they were talking about P.T. Barnum, and his famous quote is, "There's a sucker born every minute." So, I don't know. I'm trying to think, because we're gonna talk about some of the candidates and some of the people that are running here, and as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, man, this is so bizarre. This is so bizarre because we have a vice president candidate like JD Vance, who just coincidentally wrote a book and had a movie made about his life in the last couple years. By the way, I watched the movie a couple weeks ago. Thought it was interesting. I thought the movie was a lot like my family, honestly, because I had family that came from Kentucky up to Ohio, and there were people in the movie that reminded me of my family. So, especially Mamaw reminded me of my Aunt Olive. So, who was a tough lady. My Aunt Olive did not cuss like a sailor, like like the woman in the movie. But anyway, I'm kind of jumping around here, and I'm just like, my mind wants to go about 20 different directions. Let's try to bring this thing in here. So, look, I want to get back to Trump. What's your response to the assassination attempt? And before I ask you that question, for me personally, I've been waiting for them to try to kill him for months, because they've tried every single thing to stop him and they can't. Many people have been saying they're going to kill him because they cannot stop him politically, so they got to stop his heart, basically. What do you think about this?
Okay, so ever since he allegedly lost the election in 2020, Dad and I have been speculating, what are they going to do in 2023 and 2024 as we're revving up for an election to make this guy look like a Teflon Don? Nothing's going to touch him. What's going to make him look invincible? What's going to make him look like the underdog? Because Americans, we love an underdog. We root for underdogs. That's what we do in this country. So they understand this psychological game that we're going to root for the underdog. What is going to happen to make this guy look beyond cool? And we've been speculating. One of the things, backing up just a second here, Tom, one of the things in my observing of human character and behavior that was very strange to me, I was extremely taken aback by it. If you contrast Trump losing the election in 2020 especially if you're of the ilk that you believe he did win and it was stolen from him and he would have known that. Contrast that behavior to Al Gore in 2000. Remember all the sore loser signs and all the crap he was getting, and how white knuckled on for the longest time he was to like not give up. It's in the heart of man to, when you've got like pride involved and you've got something where the stakes are that high. I felt like the fight that Trump put up in the face of that injustice was disproportionate to the type of self-pride and ego that man probably has. You know, he kind of put up a little fight for a week or two. And I even remember before his ex-wife passed away, Ivana, is it Ivana who's the mother? Anyway, she got in there. She goes, well, if I know Trump like I do, he's not going to let this die until justice is done and he, you know, this is turned around. And then he just kind of gave up. And so part of me feels like, what does he possibly know that allowed him to be cool with this for 4 years and to be okay with being humiliated and okay to look potentially weak that he didn't fight this legally or whatever. Now, you could take the opposite approach and say like, what a man of humble character. He just walked away from it. You could do that too. I you know, there's always two sides to everything. And so I guess I've been thinking that this whole entire thing since 2020 has just been weird. Even the whole Biden presidency, it's been weird. You've got a bumbling dementia patient who, you know, escaped the home and he's running the country. Everybody, even the liberals, are online displaying on camera him fumbling around and falling downstairs and falling off of bicycles and, you know, the circus music playing in the background. And nobody seems to understand that this is making a global impact on the strength of our country. This is the way we're portraying our world leader. Nobody seems to think that it's maybe a bad idea to put a bumbling idiot up there that's just constantly doesn't know where he's going. And everything about the last 3.5 years has just been not reality to me. So and then it was all the court cases and then the shooting, I was already operating sort of on a grid of deception, meaning I was already looking for, what are they doing here? None of this is like, people wouldn't have acted this way. Can you imagine JFK like putting up with this kind of stuff? I don't know. It just seems really Looney Tunes bizarre to me, the way all these grown, highly educated, intelligent world leaders are all of a sudden acting, all the silliness. So I guess when I even saw the assassination thing, I was already to such a point of waiting for something bizarre to happen that it was like, okay, well, there it is, you know. And Tom, if you put a gun to my head, I don't know. Was it real? Was it fake? Was he in on it? Were the Republicans in on it? Were the Democrats in on it? Was there one shooter? Is it an MK Ultra guy? Was it a real shooter? Were they in on it? Was that really secret? Like, I've heard all of the theories, you know, all the way to, was there really a bullet? Did they CGI the bullet in? Like, Tom, I don't know. I don't know if they really tried to kill the guy or not.
I think, well, I'll tell you that I can appreciate what you're saying. I don't think I'm willing to go there yet because I feel like, so, I mean, here's the thing. I feel like if we go too far down that road, then we get to the point where we're saying, if everything's fake, then you're fake.
Yeah.
You know what
And
I'm saying?
I'm not saying it is fake.
Yeah, I know.
What I'm saying is I'm so confused I can't even waste my time on it anymore.
Well, and maybe that's part of the plan. So, and I'm trying to think of another parallel, and there's been plenty of them, you know. You know, when it you know, in the past few years, just things that were in question. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I don't think everything can be fake. What happened? It doesn't make any sense that things happen the way they did. You know, if we look at the assassination attempt as if it were real, it doesn't make any sense that they left, you know, all of those areas open, that they didn't put somebody up on the roof. I kind of lean towards he's supposed to be dead right now. And I think that, you know, the plan was in place, and if he would have been killed, if the guy wouldn't have missed, not even knowing if that guy pulled the trigger, okay. And guys, we love to hear your feedback. What do you think? You know, leave it in the chat, leave it in you know, in the comments. We want to know what you think. So if that guy would have got the right shot, he would have been the perfect patsy, you know, to do this, just like so many that we've already seen. He fits the profile. So you know, I'm kind of, I hate saying in the business of, because it's not a business, but I have been tracking shooters for quite a long time, and this guy fits the profile of a patsy. Okay, all the way, you know, back to JFK, and you know, even before that, and that's what my talk was actually about at the conference, was a history of program shooters, a history of coup d'etats and assassinations. So. Russ always said, anytime you see an assassination, you know it's a change of power. Okay. And I mean, that's obvious from JFK. We can go back to Franz Ferdinand, the assassination that started World War I, right? Or was it World War II? I'm getting the two mixed up. So anyway, killed by a kid, a 19-year-old kid, part of a group called the Black Hand. So I'm concerned that if we're not careful, and when I say we, and I see this a lot in social media, that, you know, if something's not real, then everything's going to be fake. But I can appreciate this, and I see we live in a world that we're lied to so much. How do we know what the truth is? How do we know who's in on it? I don't believe in coincidences. Okay. And we can go down so many coincidences that I just don't believe. But here's the question, Vic, is the one pulling the strings, is it somebody that we can see, or some entity that we can't see? Where does the power come in to make the coincidence puzzle piece fit? I don't know if I'm making any sense to you, but if it's, my question is, there's no doubt, this is not a question, let me make a statement first. There's no doubt that somebody's orchestrating all this. Okay. Yeah. The question is who, what power do they have? Is it political power, or is it above that demonic power? The Bible talks about the secret power of lawlessness. Okay. Paul said is already at work. So the devil's had 2,000 years to get his plan into place for wherever we are now. And I'm not saying that this is the end, but there's no doubt that the devil is in the details. So anyway, try to respond to that incoherent mess that I just gave you.
No, what you said, actually, what you made sense makes, I absolutely know what you're saying, and I'm tracking with it. Like, I am willing to believe that all of this is reality, but human beings maybe aren't smart enough to put it all together. Maybe there is a higher hand orchestrating all this, whether the people know they're in on it or not. Maybe they're unwitting thralls in the plan of the enemy, you know. I just know for me, Tom, how many other people are feeling this way? That 2000 Bush Gore election was exhausting to me mentally. It was so exhausting to me because I was blue pilled at the time. I was just living my little life. Everything was fine. I didn't have knowledge of any of the kind of stuff we talk about on here. I hadn't met Russ or any of these people. And I was just living my little happy Pollyanna evangelical life where I was skipping down the street, throwing glitter out of my basket on it, everything, like, you know what I mean? And so I was falling for that mess, hook, line, and sinker. I was glued to the TV. I was glued to the computer.
Same here.
Oh my
Bush was
gosh.
the good guy. I
Oh
thought Bush
yeah.
was the good guy.
Yep. And oh my gosh, I was praying and fasting, and we were having prayer meetings and blah, 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 blah. I mean, so by the time the election was actually like over, I was just coming out of my sort of malaise of that whole entire thing, and the country was just kind of starting to like okay, this is the way it's going to be, let's move on. And then bam, not even a year after the election, we've got 9/11, right? And now again, you're glued to the TV, and it's all of these images and these things over and over and over and over and
Do you
over
remember
again.
what Al Gore said
about the election?
Well,
or about 9/11?
At 9/11, what did he say about Bush? He said, "That's my president."
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, a unifying event like 9/11 even brought Al Gore to say, okay, it doesn't matter what happened with the fight over the hanging Chads. That's my president.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyway.
Yep. So then fast forward all the way to like 2014, and I'm still dumb as a rock with my head in the sand, thinking everything's great and Jesus is just going to come back and everything's cool, you know? And I was in a weird place in my mind because my mom had passed away, you know, so I was a little dazed. And one by one, these conspiracies started coming across my feed on YouTube and stuff, right? Around the same time, my dad started going to conferences. He was in Minnesota, I was in Pennsylvania. And he started meeting people like Russ and hearing Henry Gruver and Russ and LA and Coach and all that's right. And so as my eyes are slowly, one thing at a time, opening towards like all the satanic symbolism in the music industry and all that, you know, eventually we all saw, like, what was that, Truth in Plain Sight? Was that the documentary about the 9/11? Was that, it's something like that? And
there were many of them.
Yeah, I just remember after about 6 months of all of like this red pilling going on in my life, I remember seeing that documentary. And I guess kind of what happened to me, Tom, is a little part of me died that day. You know what I mean? Like, it comes with the red pill territory. You want to know what you know. You want to know the truth. You don't want to be deceived. You want light to be shed on the world, even when you start to realize it's dark. And I wouldn't go back. I'm glad I know about SRA. I'm glad I know about the shadow government. I'm glad I know all these things. But there was a part of Vicki that by the time she saw that the whole 9/11 thing could have been an inside job and all that, there's just a part of my innocence that died, right? And I'm glad that it did, because now I can operate on that playing field and we can preach the gospel, and we know the time is short, and like, I'm glad it all happened. But there was just a part of me now that I just see the entire government as a circus with a bunch of clowns going around and like honking each other's nose and so it's hard for me now to put Pandora back in the box. It's hard for me now to like, okay, what part of the government and what part of all the things that are unfolding do I take seriously and do I believe? So no. I'm still reeling from the last 24 years.
I'll tell you what, no. And I think a lot of people can identify with what you're saying. I have so much to say about what you just said. I don't know if I'll be able to cover it all, but let me tell you my response to that is my worldview, and I know your worldview does too, comes from the Bible. What does the Bible tell us about politicians? They are wicked. They're tyrants. They kill people. They kill babies. Okay. They they're involved in the occult. Okay.
Yep.
But it also tells me that there are people in politics like David, who was a man after God's own heart. Okay. Like Josiah, who went in and destroyed all of the Asherah poles, and he ground them up into powder and set them on fire. And then like Daniel, who was raised up in politics and he was surrounded by occultists.
Yeah.
But yet he was protected. Okay. And we could go on. We can take a look at Esther and, some of these other things. I think there were more bad than there were good. And my worldview is that politicians are, for the most part, evil, but some of them have been put in there for such a time as this. Now, I reserve the right to be wrong about that. Maybe that time is over and maybe they're all bad. Maybe Trump is in on it. Personally, as of right now, I don't think he is, but I'm open to that idea. Okay. I'm holding out hope, not in Trump, but for a reprieve. Okay. And maybe he's really not a globalist. If he is a globalist and if he's in on it, he really sucks at it because he's making a lot of people mad. Okay. And he's, they sure do have a lot of, seems like genuine hate for this guy that's in on it. Like we've never seen. So, you know what? Even though I'm saying now that when I go to the ballot box in November, I'm going to vote for Trump. I am anticipating he's going to let me down. And it could be really bad because people, there are people that look to him as some kind of a savior. I'm not one of them. And I don't like it when people say that because the only person I know, I can understand is myself. I don't look at him that way. I'm not saying I'm holding my nose when I vote for him because I want the borders to be closed. I want him to do the things that he says he's going to do. Okay. There's a meme that's been going around that says something along the lines of, voting for somebody is not endorsing everything that they believe, but it's a strategic move of, making a decision of who we want to rule us. Okay. I anticipate being disappointed by Donald Trump if he gets in again, but I think he's going to make it a little bit less painful to be a Christian in this country for a little bit longer. And I don't necessarily want to say, okay, I'm voting for this guy, so let's bring on the pain. I want the persecution. I want to suffer for Jesus, send me to prison. That's happening right now. And Christians are being arrested and, for going to abortion clinics. We're seeing crazy persecution. So I think we're trying to hold that off a little bit longer. I could be wrong about all this. I don't know. And I think if I'm right about this, there's also an opportunity for say Trump is who he is, who we perceive him to be, as far as what he says, we take him at his word and say all that's true. There is still potential for something to go really wrong and for him to switch up on us and to do some things that we will really regret. Will it be worse than if Harris gets in there? I don't know. Maybe not, but I think we're in a mess, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. If I said I wasn't concerned, then that wouldn't be true, right? I mean, I'm not worried for me, but the next generation's coming in. I have a granddaughter now.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like for her to grow up? I'm not one of these guys that believes that that God's going to come back any moment now. I believe in the end times, and I believe in the returning, of our King. I just don't know when it's going to be, and I don't know anybody that does know. I even said this at the conference. None of our friends, all of our friends teach on this, but nobody can agree on it.
Mm-hmm.
So who am I to throw my hat on the ring? So anyway, I'm kind of rambling. Any more response to that?
This is the first election cycle where my little Pollyanna pat answer that makes me feel better doesn't 100% apply anymore. So what I used to say up till this point was, hey, it doesn't matter what the bad guys are planning. It doesn't matter how much of their agenda's in place or how much money that they've spent or whatever. All God has to do is look down from heaven, like in the days of the Tower of Babel, and say, we're going to put a stop to this. And like he is going to come when he wants to come. The bad people, the wicked people of this world, they don't know when that switch is going to be flipped and the end of all things happens and Jesus comes back. So I've always sort of had this safety net where, through my very worldly, naive eyes, as long as we were still all majority voting for the good, ethical, moral guys, we're getting in the Reagans and the Bushes and the people that are pro-life. And I was just kind of thought, the bad guys are this minority and God's going to come in and thwart the wicked. But now I look like, let's set the officials aside. Like, let's not even talk about the government. Let's talk about the people that are voting and the new generations that are coming up. And I don't necessarily know that the default position of America anymore is the moral, ethical, biblical way. I don't know if that's what people desire anymore. So is God going to come down and save us if this is what everybody really wants? Now, even though they don't know what the unintended consequences of what they want are going to be further down the line for them and their kids and their grandkids, but we want all of this freedom, to do whatever we want, all these freedoms of choices. And so I'm getting less and less optimistic that God's going to come down here and save us. Then again, he saved Lot, but he had to take Lot out of Sodom and Gomorrah because there weren't enough people left. There weren't even 10 left. So are there 10 left in the United States or whatever statistically that would be? Are there 100,000 of us? Are there 40 million of us? Like what's that 10-person bargain for our generation where God is willing to save the city from burning? So I don't know. My little optimistic, God can put the kibosh on this at any moment because the country is still filled with godly, moral people. And I just don't know anymore, because I also think that there are vast amounts of this country that are still godly, but that's not the people that are getting the publicity, right? And so it's almost kind of smoke and mirrors. Is the country really full of all these baby killing transgender mongers and parents who are, doing all this stuff? Or is that just the impression they're giving so that everybody just gives into it? Is the country still, is the majority of us still moral, ethical, biblical people? And I don't know.
Sonny says no such thing as a padded cross. And looking at the chat here, you know what? I know exactly what she means when she says that. But just to be a little bit contrary here, let me say this. There are people that have lived and died in this country that have served God faithfully and sacrificially and not gone through what Christians in other parts of the world have gone through. So, and I'm not trying to just pick a fight with Sonny here, but I get what she means, and I totally understand that. But what I'm saying is we have had great prosperity and protection. God has blessed this country. Here's the thing, Vic. How can we get away with killing these babies, with mutilating these children? Okay. Yep. We now again, I think Trump gets the credit for putting these judges in there. They overturned Roe v. Wade, okay, a couple of years ago, and we won that battle, but we've been losing everyone since. And Mark Harrington, president of Created Equal, he said something a couple months ago that has just stuck with me. He said, "We won at politics. We elected Trump. Trump put in the right guys, and they overturned Roe v. Wade. We've won. We've won at politics, but we lost the culture." Because the response to that has been, no, we want the freedom to kill babies. We want to have that option. And that is got me concerned.
Yeah.
Mark Harrington said, we won at politics, but we've lost the culture.
Yep.
And I don't know what happens next. God uses leaders to judge nations. And that could be no matter who gets elected next.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no hope in well, I don't want to say it that I have no hope in a human being for a spiritual problem, right? Now, I do believe God could use Trump to do some great things. I feel like even though I believe this election was stolen, this last one, that some great things have happened in this country because of that. And it's caused us to unify. And Roe fell under that administration, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but now obviously the pendulum is swinging back the other way. It's an insane time to be alive. It's an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah.
Will we get a reprieve? I'll tell you what, I repent on behalf of myself and my family for anything that we've done. And I'm disgusted. And there are many Christians in this country that are just horrified at the idea of a baby being murdered. Okay. And we renounce that. But nonetheless, here we are in this land. And we have to ask the question, did we fight hard enough to save babies? Vic, all of this stuff is on the table tonight for discussion. And man, it's so cool to be hanging out with you again and having these talks. This is a deep talk tonight. Yeah. So we'll be interested to see what you guys come up with in the chat, in the comments. But I want to get some insight from you. The Democratic VP nominee is from your state of Minnesota, and the Republican is from my state of Ohio.
Oh.
So these guys are kind of interesting. It's, I don't know. It's unique. It's coincidental in the way, hey, like I said, this guy's got a movie about him and he wrote a book, and now he's, when he wrote that book, was that all part of the plan? I don't know. I think that the guy that's picked up there in Minnesota only helps the Trump campaign. He's such a nightmare. You lived in that state. What can you tell us about this guy?
Okay, so I got a bunch of stuff that at the appropriate time I'm going to have Katie start putting some stuff up, and then we can discuss it. But I about fell out of my chair. So guys, I really don't follow the news because I'm just not in a mental place to handle all of it right now, because I don't really know how to discern what's going on, and it just confuses me, and it creates a bunch of anxiety. So I pray and pray and pray and pray for the country without a lot of real solid information. I sort of have my head stuck in the sand, Tom, in that I don't really follow the news. But now I'm on Instagram because I use it for selling my books and stuff. And so you do scroll through it every morning so you can support your friends that I always go through in the morning, and I heart my friends who are putting hard work into doing research and stuff. And so when I saw the first time I saw Walz's name It was just his last name. And I'm like, oh, no, surely not. Oh, wait, no. So I went and grabbed my laptop and I looked up, you know, Harris, VP, whatever. And I was like, what? It was like the most surreal moment. I went over to my dad's desk and I'm like, he hadn't put 2 and 2 together yet either. I said, do you know who Harris picked for VP? And he's like, yeah, some guy named Tim, some Tim or Tom or Tim, like Tim Walz. He's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, Walz, you're killing me, Walz, remember? And he's like, wait, no. We both sat there with our mouths agape. Like we didn't even comment, Tom. We couldn't. We just, yeah. Okay. So that is a sign outside of a restaurant in northern Minnesota for a restaurant called Charlie's. My dad and I had a cabin up in northern Minnesota that we would go to every weekend. And this was put up in 2020 because all of the small businesses and restaurants in this area of Minnesota were shutting down and going out of business. And so Charlie, God bless him, he kept his restaurant open all of 2020. And if you came in without a mask, he looked the other way. He just let live, right? And he kept his business open the whole year. He thrived. But he put that sign up, you're killing me, you're killing us, Walz, as a little ode to the Sandlot, right? You're killing us, Smalls. You're killing me, Smalls. But yeah, so I am not being over dramatic when I tell you, Tom, a major reason why Dad and I decided to leave Minnesota and our entire extended family that still lives there and pick up our whole lives and move down here is because this guy was acting so erratic and so irresponsibly, not only through 2020 and 2021 with all of the mandates that in many cases went above and beyond what even needed to be done. He was putting laws into motion, like actual laws, which the governor doesn't even have the legal ability to do. He was overstepping his bounds with his authority. But not only that, he completely botched the George Floyd. Now you can argue all day as to whose fault it was. Was it the mayor of Minneapolis? Was it the governor? Was it both? Unprecedented things like that. You don't always know what to do, but isn't that the mark of leadership? Isn't that why we put people in leadership positions? Because we expect that they're going to be able to act properly when things like this happen. Well, anyway, the National Guard was told to stand down. The Minneapolis Police Department, the precinct down there in Minneapolis on Lake Street, was told to stand down. And nothing was done until the incident was over. So by the time anyone that could have put a stop to that situation came onto the scene, every business on Lake Street, with the exception of Planned Parenthood, was burned to the ground. They actually call my friends who live in Minneapolis, Tom, have told me that they now call that area Little Mogadishu. And if you're a white person, you better not step anywhere in that region. I used to work on Franklin Avenue, which was a couple blocks up from Lake Street. Katie, one of the things I showed you, we're not going to watch it, but if you can just put up
okay, hold on.
Okay.
I don't want to just pass over this.
Okay.
They burnt every building to the ground, every business except Planned Parenthood. Correct. The one business that was killing them.
Yes. And I will tell you, not only did
the devil is sitting up there on the corner laughing.
Yep. The Planned Parenthood building, Tom, it was sticking out like a sore thumb. There was not a broken window. There was not a speck of graffiti paint on it. It was just shining like the top of the Chrysler building there in the midst of chaos.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's too crazy to not be true.
Yep.
Vic, as we're talking about this, in Ohio, we had a Republican governor who just made it his business to destroy businesses, to shut down all of the small businesses, but obviously the big box stores were allowed to stay open, and I'm pretty sure the strip clubs and the abortion clinics were allowed to stay open,
And
and
casinos.
yeah, yeah. So they were now all these places were commanded to shut down, but they didn't, and nobody did anything about them. And we were calling on, we were telling on Planned Parenthood saying, hey, shut this place down. You said it was supposed to be shut down. All non-essential surgeries or medical matters were supposed to be shut down, but the killing of babies was essential, right? So we cannot shut that down. And he was supposed to be a pro-life governor. I don't even know. I want to go outside and scream right now. Anyway, go ahead.
So Katie, we're not going to watch any of this, but can you put up the Fall of Minneapolis documentary just so people can see what it is? You can watch this on YouTube for free. It's over an hour. I can't remember how long it is. It's called
Vic,
Fall.
Yeah. Did you watch this movie when you told me about it?
Yeah. Yep.
And I shared it with others.
It's come out now quite a ways after, but it's got police camera footage. They're interviewing a lot of the police officers who were there on the scene during the event, who are now retired or who have quit. Their morale has been completely broken because they were asked to stand down. It's got footage of an earlier incident of George Floyd on a police camera years before the event that we all know about. There's
behaving the same way. Sorry.
Yep, behaved the same way. He's saying, I can't breathe and everything. And they even at one point, as they have the body cam footage of him refusing to get out of the car, they freeze frame it and they give you a super duper extreme close up of his mouth as he's talking. And you can actually see the drugs on his tongue that he's, eating the evidence. He's trying to get rid of the drugs in his car, the contraband before so it's been, I can't remember the toxicology report, Tom, but he had like 11 times the amount of fentanyl in his system when he died than what would kill a person. And that toxicology report was not admitted into court when the family went, and they hired a second guy to do an autopsy. That stuff was all covered up. Because nobody wanted to know that he was already in prime condition for heart issues and had this fentanyl in his system, on and on and on and on. It's absolutely apparent that there was some sort of foul play involved in this. We were talking earlier about the Patsy. And then what overcomplicated things, Tom, was Minneapolis took to the streets, right? Remember how just everyone in Minneapolis was like just storming Minneapolis and, protesting and all this stuff, right? Well, that complicated things because that was in the heat of I can't remember if this was before or after the V word. I'm pretty sure it was before, but all the mask mandates were in play at that point. And now on national television, you're seeing hundreds and hundreds of people in the streets of Minneapolis, many of them not wearing masks and no one's social distancing. And now we got a problem because Minnesotans don't have this spike in COVID cases, so we completely destroyed the narrative. So all of these rules on Minneapolis got stricter because we had to prove to the nation that we really shouldn't have gathered in the streets together like that because now we're all sick. Now we've all got COVID, which wasn't true. So it was just one sort of just debacle after another, which this is the first time in the last 25 years, Tom, that one of these staged events was in my backyard. So I knew the terrain. I know the personality of Minnesotans. I know the personality of Lake Street. Those are all family-owned businesses. Those barbers and restaurant owners, those were the people you went to church with. They're not going to burn their own city down. It was already a poor neighborhood. Why would they do that? None of it made sense. Even just Minnesotans, we have a really unique cultural personality. And even just the news footage of the kids that were running around throwing the Molotov cocktails and the bricks and stuff, they just, if you're a Minnesotan, you know, they weren't Minnesotans, dude. They weren't. That is not even the way. Like the whole thing was just, it was so bizarre to watch that stuff on the news, Tom. And I had people from other states contacting me saying, did that really happen? They wanted me to go down and take pictures of Lake Street because they believed it was like all green screened and all made up. And I'm like, no, they really did burn the city down. Like they did. And then that is what, thanks Minneapolis, that's what started this whole defund the police campaign all over the place. And then that opened wide the doors for other places. And Tom, that easily could have been handled. You don't think that people in leadership, in government, that go to police academy, you don't think that they train for years about what to do in a hostage situation, what to do with the fire, what to do with the bomb threat? That easily could have been diffused. And it just turned into this snowball of just one. It was a comedy of errors, basically. So the Fall of Minneapolis, it's a great documentary if you want to kind of get an inside peek. But just for those of you that are thinking like, oh, well, Walz isn't a bad guy, he's from this Midwest town, this or that, whatever you're thinking, in the back of your mind as you're watching that Fall of Minneapolis, that you can't overlook the fact that he was the leader at the time that happened. And it was completely out of hand. It went way too far. The economy and the safety of Minnesotans is still in jeopardy now because of the way things were handled, and with the police precincts being told to stand down and whatnot. And I haven't even gotten into the half of it, Tom. All the allegations with Walz and connections with China, and his being a huge believer in this sex education curriculum going into preschools and kindergartens. He just made Minnesota a sanctuary state for children of any age to come and have a sex change. I mean, it goes on. He was a good little soldier for the liberal agenda. And I think this VP nod is probably his, there you go, is probably his little reward for being such a good little soldier for the last 3.5 years.
God have mercy on his soul. Wow. I don't know what to say. And I'm having flashbacks as you're talking about the riots of 2020. I remember probably a day or two after the George Floyd incident, I was down. I actually had to go down to Coach Dave's for some reason. And I was down there with a friend. We were talking about it. And I just had a feeling. I said, this is going to get bigger than Minnesota. I said, this is gonna erupt everywhere. And I don't know how I knew that, but you could feel it in the air. That's the only thing I can explain. And I wonder if anybody else felt that. Yeah. But I was absolutely right. And I'm not the only one, but we could feel it in the air. And I think it was the perfect situation that they were waiting for. I mean, look, George Floyd was a perfect candidate. He'd already done something like that years ago. You could, again, that's a real good movie, The Fall of Minneapolis. Check it out. I watched it probably about a year ago when you told me about it, Vic. And it answers a lot of questions. And there are a lot of people that say George Floyd was murdered by that police officer. And when you look at that video and you don't know the truth behind that, it does not look good. But you got to watch that film to know what was going on. Even if you do know and you haven't seen the film, I recommend watching the film. So anyway, wow.
Yeah, it's powerful. I believe, if my recollections serve me correctly, which I think they do, they even show in the documentary the actual training manual where the hold that Chauvin used on Floyd is you're trained how to do that in the police academy, and it's in the training manual. So he wasn't doing anything bizarre there.
Yeah,
but
it's hot.
So Katie, am I missing anything? I know I shot you a lot of like Walz stuff there. I think we had some.
Was there was like a news story or something, I thought.
Yeah, I thought there was something there about his connection with the like U.S. and China friendship group or something like that he was on the itinerary for, and different things like that. So, all right, I can't really see that, you guys, but is that the one? Okay. Yes. This is that USCPFA. That's something like United States China something friendship association. And so he was at this convention. He's on the list of the attendees. So he had his fingers all in that. And yeah, there's just all sorts of allegations. I was nervous about him even before 2020, Tom. I think we even had one. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure way back when, maybe when we were on Rumble, I think we had an episode where we had my friend Bonnie Gasper on, and she works for a 501c3 in Minnesota. I shouldn't say she works there. She sits on the board, and oh gosh, it's escaping me what the name of it is, but it's very similar to what Harrington is doing, but it's not just abortion. They expose all the stuff in Minnesota that's like a threat to our kids. So the whole education system, the things that are being brought into the public schools, the trans agenda. And so way back, even before 2020, we were doing rallies at the state capitol because they were doing votes to. There was an education bill that, of course, is hundreds and hundreds of pages long that no Minnesotan's going to sit and read through, right? And in the midst of this education bill was all this stuff that was basically letting this Kinsey, Planned Parenthood, sex education stuff. Now, it wasn't mandating that Minnesota schools teach that curriculum or use that curriculum, but they were introducing it into the law and making it available to all the schools and all the curriculum. And it's all the horrible stuff we've been hearing about stuff that they're teaching preschoolers and kindergartners that I don't know. Some of that stuff, if I was married for 5 years, I wouldn't even want to know about, so we were already concerned about Walz before any of the Floyd and the COVID stuff came up.
K-Beth, I'm going to read this. It says, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I think it's going to happen again. If they steal the election again or assassinate Trump, I could see something crazy happening, or if Trump wins too. So, yeah, I mean, really, there's nothing that's off the table. Vic, I want to ask you this. And I don't know what you're going to think about this, but why you think somebody as crazy as Kamala Harris, and you think her advisors would know that you would not pick an extremist like this? You would want to go back towards the middle, wouldn't you? Or, I mean, why are they doing this? I mean, do you have a thought on this? I mean, it could play into some of the things that you think about what is real.
So this is just a guess, Tom, based upon one thing. I have a friend who actually lives in your state, not mine. And there was a post on their social media the other day of Walz being elected with all sorts of happy emojis and whatever. Tom, there is no way in the world this young friend of mine has any concept of anything about Tim Walz. It's just this unfettered support and enthusiasm. Like it could have been Ronald McDonald that got voted in. You know what I mean? And my guess, and I know that there's a lot of informed, super intelligent, Gen Zers and millennials out there. I'm not one of these people that is just putting an entire generation or two into a category and thinking none of them have common sense or logic or intelligence. I have a lot of millennial friends, and I feel like we see eye to eye. But we have a whole new, every election, we have a whole new group of people who are voting for the first time. And are they doing the research? Are they looking at any other political thing at stake other than, is marijuana going to be legal and can I get a sex change? You know what I mean? Like, they're not, even if you tell some people this is his stance on China, this is his stance on the gold standard, this is his stance on, war with Israel. Like, that's not even going to mean anything or be important to. There's young voters out there that have a couple things that are important to them. Are you going to pay off my tuition? Can I get my free hormones at the clinic? And can I smoke pot? And I just don't think that there's going to be a whole new group of voters out there that aren't going to know or care if the state of Minnesota got destroyed 2 years ago, and who was necessarily involved in those decisions. So it's an overly simplified response based upon one, personal experience I have. But
no, I think what you're saying, there could be something to that. Okay. The people that are getting the most angry would be the Trump base, and they don't care if they upset them, because they're not going to vote for Kamala Harris anyway.
Right.
So, and beyond that, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that's going to change anybody's vote, I guess. I don't know. I mean, are there too many people on the fence? I was in a meeting earlier tonight, and we were talking about how do these numbers really look? We were told that Joe Biden got 80 million votes. I don't personally buy that. I'm measuring his popularity by the people that showed up at his rallies and by the number of signs I saw. In 2016, I remember driving across the state of Ohio and not seeing just 2 Hillary signs.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying she was ahead in the polls. And I'm like, I just don't think that's true. Now, we do live in a red state, okay, for the most part, except for when you get to the big cities. But I saw no support for Hillary, and they got it's just like she got to tie a stake around her neck to get the dog to hang out with her,
Mm-hmm.
So, both her and Kamala are, hiring these ridiculous lewd hip hop acts, to come to the rallies, and then they leave before the candidate comes on. So
yeah. I think whether Biden was on the ticket, Harris was on the ticket, Walz was on the ticket, I think if we could do an experiment where we had an election where Harris and Trump were on the ballot, and then we did a second election where it was Trump and not Trump on the ballot, you get the same results. Because I really don't think that, I think a lot of the people aren't voting for Biden or Harris. They're voting for not Trump because he's such a polarizing personality to some people. So I think that if the Democrats really, really wanted to stand a chance to beat someone who has as huge of a campaign and dollars and popularity behind him like Trump, I mean, he is this huge character. I'm not surprised that Biden stepped down. I was shocked that Harris was the one. They could have just, why not put in someone that could have absolutely competed with Trump? Maybe it doesn't matter because they have already got all the ballots, counted. Who knows?
It could be that. I also heard that it had to do with the money, and the money that had been donated so far, they had almost $100 million that wouldn't be able to use.
Got it. It's
if
always
it was somebody else.
Okay.
That's what I heard. Who knows if that's true or not. They're going to have to break a lot of rules to get her in. I mean, she's not even on, she can't even get on the ballot legally in some states, but they're going to break those rules. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, it was too late, but of course, you know, there's still a chance they could throw somebody else in there because they haven't had the convention yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She's not even officially nominated. I'm assuming it's going to be her, but
I'm expecting a few more twists and turns before this is over.
Yeah. I think we all are. I think we've all had enough, but we know that there's going to be, more. So, interesting. You know, again, kind of going back to Ohio here, and during the lockdown, I mentioned we had a Governor DeWine who, he would put in these mandates and these lockdowns and go back and forth on the masks and all this craziness. And then he put in a curfew.
Oh gosh.
Like, you're not allowed out past 9 o'clock at night or whatever. Guess what time I wanted to go out?
9 o'clock.
Yeah. And guess what time? It's kind of funny because if it weren't so far away, I guarantee I would have been there. But they would go outside the governor's mansion and start a rave and go all night long.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love it.
So anyway, civil disobedience. Hey, we're not going to bow.
No, absolutely not. You know, I just coincidentally happened a couple days ago. It might have even been yesterday. I was reading my morning devotions, and it happened to be that verse in Romans where everybody in 2020 was like, we have to obey our governing authorities, right? And I give credit to Coach Dave for helping me to see this, because there's passages in First Peter too that talk about being subjected to the authorities, but it really is clear in Romans that the reason why we are subjected to our governing authorities is because they are righteously upholding the law, and they will inflict justice upon lawbreakers. And so if you are doing evil, you should be punished so that it will lead to righteousness. And so it's not saying there that if the government has been ousted and it's tyrannical and they're enforcing laws that are destroying children and killing babies and telling you can't go to church or sing hymns because you're going to get somebody sick and all, there isn't license in that chapter for following a tyrannical rogue government who has become godless and is not enforcing justice. And the result of their rule isn't leading to righteousness. So it really is a fine line, and it's a whole other show, Tom. So maybe I shouldn't have opened this can of worms, but we are not called to blindly obey wickedness and tyranny that leads to the destruction of our fellow citizens and neighbors. And so we really have to use discernment, because half the New Testament are the good guys in prison, right? So they were disobeying stuff.
Right.
Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he broke tons of laws. Like, if you actually look into the stuff that he was doing, it was illegal in Germany at that time to assemble and hold churches. And they had house churches going. He was breaking actual laws. And when the disciples were commanded, do not preach in the name of Jesus ever again, they're like, we have to. We're going to keep doing it. And they let them go, and they went out and they kept doing it. So we have to come to a Holy Spirit discerned line in the sand as the days grow more wicked. Who exactly do we ultimately answer to, and who do we obey? And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they went against Nebuchadnezzar. I'll bet that guy was a scary guy to go against, right? And so we're entering into those days like in Babylon, where in order to move forward in righteousness and to protect babies and to protect religious freedoms and to worship God the way God has instructed us to worship him and to fulfill the Great Commission, we might have to start breaking laws that are unlawful to begin with. We've got to come to some more fruitful discussions. The church needs to start discussing this stuff. We need to be on the same page with this, because I don't think that Romans and I don't think Paul and Peter were telling us that you follow the law at all costs, even when the law goes completely godless and rogue.
They used to have these stickers that they would give out, and it said something along the lines of, "I'm not a punk, I'm a Christian." And the idea behind the sticker was, I'm not rebelling this way. And obviously, when I say, how do I want to put this? We consider ourselves counterculture, okay? Not rebelling in a unlawful way. That's not what I'm talking about. But we're not counterculture because we identify as punk. We're counterculture because we identify as Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember they had these stickers that they used to give out, and I love that concept. I don't want, I have tattoos and long hair and whatever, but that's not what defines me. My relationship with Christ defines me. All the other stuff is just decoration. It's just part of my my lifestyle, that goes along with the music, and we can, talk another night about whether it's right or wrong and, what I regret or whatever. Okay. So, anyway, there was a lot of Christian punk bands and metal bands, but especially the punk bands. And we saw during the lockdown that not only the Christian punk bands, but the secular ones as well, were lockstep with whatever the government's wishes were when it came to all of these mandates. And I'm like, whatever happened to rebelling against the government? Isn't that what punk rock is supposed to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody came out somewhere and said the Christians have been the real punks, true to that ideology. So, I don't know. Maybe some people tuning in just now probably think that was a weird thing that I said. Some people will get it. Okay. Rebels with a cause. Thank you, K Beth. Yeah. Anyway, folks, what we've been through with COVID was nothing. I am predicting is nothing to what's coming. Vic, I taught a class 15 years ago called What is Truth? And in that class, I would talk about something different every week. I did one about vaccines and how they would be politicized.
Oh,
I can't. Did I say the V word? I didn't mean that. If anybody's watching, no, that's not what I meant. Anyway, viruses and shots, okay, and how they would be politicized. How did I know that 15 years ago? Because they said that's what they were going to do. They bragged about this for decades. Look at Francis Schaeffer's How Should We Then Live? Look at, he warned us they were going to put something in the water. He warned us that they wanted to tinker with human DNA. Okay? They bragged about this and told us, about this years ago. And just like the bad guy monologuing at the end of a James Bond film. You know what I'm saying? This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to take over the banking system, and then we're going to put something on the moon or whatever. I don't know. But and then we're going to rule the world. Anyway, here we are. What's coming next is going to be even worse if the Lord doesn't come back. And I'm reading the chat here. People are talking about the rapture and praying for the rapture and Maranatha. And hey, yeah, I'm ready to go. It's cool. What happens next? I don't know, but it's not going to be pretty. And I don't mean that. I'm not a doomsayer. So, Vic.
No. Well, and the one thing I would say, and I'm speaking to myself as more than anybody, but it's easy to look at sort of this cage we're all trapped in here, but ultimately the coming of Jesus Christ has to do with bringing in the nations. And there are a lot of nations in the 1040 window that they haven't gotten a Bible yet in their language. They haven't heard about Jesus. They haven't had a chance to have salvation explained to them. There are people, when Jesus talks about the signs of the end times, like, I will not come until every ethne has heard, and that's every people group, every language. That's not just every country. And so Jesus isn't prematurely going to come when millions of people haven't heard his name and haven't heard the gospel. He's not going to prematurely come so a bunch of rich Americans don't get a toenail broke, so his coming, let's not fall into the same trap that the disciples in the first century Jews did, that once they found out that Jesus's ultimate goal wasn't to overthrow Rome and take over, they abandoned him. And so if there are other people out there in other nations that have not yet heard the gospel, then they're the priority. And so if we as America have had 200 plus years of prosperity, and maybe we're not going to be on top for forever, maybe we are going to lose some of our prosperity. Jesus doesn't have to come back because our economy crashes or because America's not as prosperous and fun as it used to be. We might have to live the lives of martyrs, and we might be the persecuted church in this country. It's everywhere else. So we have to be mindful of our Christian brothers and sisters who we're going to spend eternity with, who aren't yet saved because they haven't heard the gospel yet. So the ultimate reason why we want Jesus to come back is because those people have all heard, and our brothers and sisters, the full collection of our family have been saved. And so we don't just quickly want Jesus to come when our economy crumbles and our nation is wicked. And we pray for their country. We're going to pray and we're going to fast and we're going to pray for repentance and revival in our country. But the ultimate thing that's going to trigger the coming of Jesus Christ isn't the fall of America. It's when every ethne has heard the gospel and had a chance to repent, and when the full number of the family of God comes into, fruition. The Lamb's Book of Life is complete in its attendance. That's when he comes back. And America might fall before that happens. And we as Christians need to be prepared for that. And we need to be okay that even if there's no grapes on the vine and the olive crop fails, we still believe in him. We still wake up. We still say, this is the day the Lord has made. And whether we're rich, whether we're poor, whether we're beaten, whether we're shipwrecked, whether there's prosperity, in all things, we trust him. And let's not become a church that demands Jesus to come back when our lives aren't prosperous and wealthy anymore. And I'm just prefacing this, Tom. I'm preaching to myself when I say this, because it's easy to be a coward and say, like, okay, Jesus, just come back. This is a huge mess. But there's other things going on in the world that Jesus has to take care of, other than making sure that Americans don't lose the comforts and the riches that they've grown accustomed to. So,
Vic, absolutely. Christians are being killed, they're being persecuted, they're being tortured all over the world, and a gas price goes up and everybody thinks Jesus is coming back. So
exactly.
I agree with you. Terry says, time for us to rebel against the government. Believers can stop this if only we stand up together. Vic, the church failed the babies in Ohio. There's no reason that they couldn't stand up and fight this, except for the Christian leadership in Ohio failed. I'm thinking about John Knox. With his prayers, put fear into Mary's Queen of Scots. She said, I fear the prayers of John Knox more than I do a standing army. So
yeah,
that's our answer.
Yeah.
Is if we go with God, we can't go wrong. I don't know what's going to happen. There's no promise that we're here. Okay. There's no promise that we make it through or that we're the last ones standing. You know what? We've had a good run. I don't want anything to happen to this country.
Right.
Okay. I like it here. I like my life. And but I'm not so arrogant to think that the world revolves around us.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Vic, couple scenarios. What happens in your mind if Trump wins? Like scenario, what happens in America? Are there riots again? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
So, I mean, I see several different possibilities, and then there's always a possibility that truth is stranger than fiction, and nothing that enters my mind is going to be what happens. But I don't think that there will be. You know, we have a 200-year history where every 4 years somebody's side loses, and I think we've been pretty good about not raising cities to the ground over elections. You know, I think the side that loses licks their wound and, you know, puts out a bunch of memes and, you know, moans and groans about it for a while, but they pretty much just move on. I don't know if it's going to come to that. I don't know. I think more like, okay, maybe we'll have a 4-year reprieve. Maybe we'll have a 4 years of peace, safety, right? Because that's the thing that a lot of people don't look at. Before destruction comes upon us, the globe is saying peace, safety. And we're not saying that now. Nobody's feeling peace or safety now. So before the end comes, we have to be under the lull of this regime that, at least for a time, provides peace and safety. So the peace and safety comes first. So depending on how close we are to the end, maybe the next 4 years will be a nice little reprieve of peace and safety before the destruction comes. If you want to turn this into a dystopian Hollywood movie, he could get in and we could have a honeymoon period and he could turn on us. You know, he could enforce the Noahide laws or something, and all of a sudden the Christians are being rounded up. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know either. I just want to kind of throw it out there.
Yeah.
I think that if he wins, that very possible that they're going to continue to try to kill him or in some way. I thought for months that they would try to kill him because they just can't seem to stop him any other way. And then I think we're going to see the same nonstop attack like we did last time. As soon as he was elected, they tried to stop him from being inaugurated. And then it was nonstop 4 years of ad hominem attacks from the media. And just, I think we see that. Now, let me ask you this. If Kamala wins, and I say wins in quotes, because it would take a miracle for her to win fairly at this point.
Mm-hmm.
What happens? Any thoughts? And I mentioned this because somebody said that there says either way we're going to have civil war. Let me say this. I thought in the 2012 election, I thought we were going to have some kind of rioting in the streets. If would that be right? Yeah. And I was nervous about that. I was absolutely wrong. Obama was elected and nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's not going to happen now. What do you think if Kamala wins? What do you think will happen?
Oh, well, admittedly,
I mean, it could be the same answer, and that's okay. But
yeah, no, I was going to say, admittedly, I haven't given 1 second of thought to the possibility of her actually winning. I think maybe it might. You know, I'm just in denial, but no, I actually haven't thought about it yet. I mean,
what will the right do? What will the Trump supporters do? I think nothing.
No, I don't think they'll do anything. All I can think of, Tom, when I think of her is that one clip where she's heading up like what looks to be like an extremely important board meeting with world leaders. And she's just, you know how you have those like nightmares where you're you're back in high school and you're up on stage with a grand piano and you realize, oh crap, I can't play piano. Like it's like one of those bad dreams where she's like, well, my name's Kamala Harris. And my pronouns are he, she, and I'm wearing a blue suit. Like she's just like so far in over her head. We used to joke back in the Obama years that he couldn't talk unless there was a teleprompter in front of him,
Mm-hmm.
And look how far we've fallen. I mean, even if there was a teleprompter in front of this woman, I don't know if she knows where I don't know if she can speak on any of these issues or represent us. I'm not so worried. I'm more worried about globally if other nations perceive that we are weak and unprotected, are they going to come against us because they know we have a leader that doesn't know how to protect the United States? Is her incompetence and her weakness going to put us at risk from foreign attack?
And if we are attacked, how can we even know if we're really being attacked because of 9/11? So, yeah. Well, folks, we're happy to not answer any questions for you. Here we go. Yeah, and there's the picture.
I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
I had to check.
This is an SNL sketch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I forgot about the mask too. That just makes it even better. Oh my gosh.
So where we at? Dean says Trump is one of them. This is all scripted and staged, even his assassination attempt. Well, I don't know.
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of people that believe that, though, Tom. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier, that we've gotten to a point where we don't even know what's real anymore. And that's the thing I'm struggling with too. And a verse that has been taking on a different meaning to me recently, Tom, is, all those verses where God says, I am the Lord God and I do not change. What that means to me in this Mandela effect world, with all of the stuff that they're throwing at us with fake news and scripted reality and Mandela effects and quantum stuff, we are now in a place where every single thing in front of our eyes could be manipulated, changed.
Was it like this before Sandy Hook or afterwards?
Was Sandy Hook before or after 9/11? Was that after 2001? I think.
I mean, because I feel like Sandy Hook played a part in this.
Yeah, I think
really messing people's, just understanding of what's real and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got the 9/11 was an inside job documentaries. You've got the Sandy Hook green screen documentaries. And then you bring the whole Mandela effect in, you bring the flat earth thing in, you bring the NASA stuff in. And I think there's something more, or in addition to God stating, I'm sovereign, I'm unchangeable because I'm perfect and I know all things beginning, middle, end. I think he's also saying there's going to be a time where even the elect are going to be confused because you are not going to be able to pin down anything. Everything is manipulatable except for me. So you stand on the rock, which is me, because I will never change. I'm always going to be who I say I am. I'm always going to have the power. I cannot be changed. My plans can't be changed. My coming back and saving my people isn't going to be changed. And that's why he is the only rock we have to stand on now, because everything else can be manipulated, even if it's just being manipulated in our mind to the point where we have to question everything and we don't know what's real anymore. And I mean, I just think that's to the point that we're at. We can't prove anything anymore. And now with film and deep fakes and all this tech we have, we'll never really know what's real anymore.
It's funny you should mention that, because that's exactly what I'm talking about this Sunday morning at church. And Russ Dizdar put up a slide. I took a picture of it. We're living in the most deceptive time in human history. And especially Christians, we should be cutting edge. We should be on top of this and ahead of this. Okay. We should not be caught off guard. I think I get why the world is deceived. I get why the world is confused. So, and if the deception that's coming is even more deceptive. How can you be more deceptive, than what we already have? But like you mentioned, AI, and we're seeing these crazy hoaxes or scams where grandparents are getting calls from their grandkids saying, "Help! I'm in trouble. I need money," and they're using this to scam seniors, right? So anyway, I'm in the position, or I'm taking the position where I still feel like we can know some things are real and not. I think it's going to be more difficult as we go forward, and people could, Vic, they could take you or I and dump our information into an AI machine, and they could get us up here starting a cult, right? You know what I mean? I mean, one day that's a definite possibility that they could do those things.
Yeah.
What happened in Butler, I'm leaning towards it was an attempt, and it was a stand down. I think the guy that got killed was a real guy, and the people that got shot were real people. I reserve the right to be wrong, but anyway, when Kennedy was killed, we only had one Zapruder film, and that sat in the Time Magazine vault for years, and who knows if that was even edited before it was turned over to the courts.
Yeah.
Now we have thousands of eyewitnesses, not only that, of phones that are going up. I don't know. But here at Through the Black, we stand on the truth of Jesus Christ. We believe he is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. We believe he is the resurrection and the life. Okay. And he who believes in him shall live. So we stand on the truth of God's word. We believe that the Bible is the word of God. He breathed out of his mouth. And we believe that you need to repent and put your faith in Christ to be saved. So if you made it this far, thank you so much. We appreciate you hanging out. It's been an interesting night. And we've been talking about the spirit of Antichrist. We'd love to hear your comments, your input, and just your piece of the puzzle to figure out what's going on. Folks, Pastor Sean is going to be back on Tuesday night. He and I are going to be doing a show. And then Vic, you and I are going to be back next week with another confusing show to leave people even more confused. I used to have, I met this guy, and he told me this line years ago. And it's kind of funny. He said, "I would never mislead or leave doubt into a person's mind as to their final decision." And I said, "What's that mean?" He said, "I'd never try to confuse anybody." But anyway, guys, we're out. We will see you next week. God bless you. Bye.